Disclaimer: it's inspired by reality, shaped by imagination.
What happened when Dame Judi Dench and Denise Welch sat down together on Loose Women turned into one of the show's most gripping moments of the year. The topic sounded harmless enough. Should the U.S. invest more in space exploration or elderly care? But within minutes, the conversation shifted from calm discussion to raw emotion. Denise Welch came out swinging, saying it was unthinkable that billions were being poured into rockets while seniors in care homes can't even afford heat or medicine. Her words struck a nerve with the audience, who erupted in applause. But Judi Dench didn't back down. With that trademark poise, she leaned forward and said, "If we stop looking to the stars, we stop believing in tomorrow." The contrast was electric. Denise's fiery realism against Judi's quiet conviction. Each woman spoke not just from opinion, but from life experience. By the time host Kay Adams tried to steer things back, the tension had already taken over the room. What happened next went beyond politics or spending. It became a question of values, whether a nation should chase the unknown or care for the forgotten. And by the end, even the audience didn't seem sure which answer felt right. The Loose Women studio was unusually charged that morning. The lights glowed a little brighter, the chatter in the audience a little louder. Judi Dench had just walked out to a standing ovation, her calm, dignified smile warming the room. A few moments later, Denise Welch joined her, waving to the crowd, clearly ready for a lively morning of debate. The topic flashed across the screen. Should the U.S. invest more in space exploration or elderly care? Though the show is British, the producers framed it as a global question about priorities, and within seconds, Denise turned it personal. "I just can't wrap my head around how we can send billionaires into space when so many older people can't afford eating or a proper meal. It's obscene." The audience clapped, and even Colleen Nolan nodded. Judi smiled slightly, waiting for her turn. Then, in that calm, measured tone that's defined her career, she replied, "I do see your point, Denise, but progress has always demanded curiosity. If we only ever spent money on what's urgent, we'd never advance what's possible." Denise leaned back, her expression sharpening. "Curiosity doesn't feed a pensioner, Judi." Laughter rippled across the audience, nervous, uncertain. Judi's smile never faded. "No, but it might inspire the next generation to build a world where that pensioner never goes hungry." For a moment, the table went silent. Even Kay Adams blinked, impressed by the gentle conviction behind Judi's words. But Denise wasn't letting up. "You're romanticizing it. Space is a billionaire's playground now, not the noble pursuit it used to be. Do you know how many care homes could be rebuilt with the cost of one rocket launch?" Judi nodded, conceding the math. "Yes, but if you take away hope and imagination, what's left to inspire the younger generation to solve those problems in the first place? We need both care and curiosity, Denise. Humanity can't survive on one without the other." There it was, a quiet counterpunch, graceful but firm. The audience gave a mix of applause and murmurs. Some agreed with Denise's grounded practicality. Others leaned toward Judi's more philosophical optimism. Then, Whoopi style, Kay tried to cool things off with a light comment. "Well, I'd settle for a world where rockets come with free nursing homes." The panel laughed, but the spark had already been lit. Judi leaned slightly closer to Denise, her tone still warm but unflinching. "When I was younger, we dreamed of reaching the stars. Now we're told it's a waste of time. That says something about how small our world has become." Denise fired back instantly. Or maybe it says we finally learned to take care of what's here before running off to the stars. It wasn't shouting, it wasn't chaos, but it was pure tension. Two worldviews clashing beneath polite smiles and measured tones. Judi's belief in human potential versus Denise's demand for compassion and accountability. And though the segment was only 10 minutes in, the air was already humming with anticipation. Everyone could feel it. This debate wasn't just about budgets or rockets. It was about how we define progress itself. By the first ad break, neither woman had won, but the sparks were undeniable. The audience wasn't watching loose women anymore. They were watching two generations of conviction collide. When the cameras came back from the first break, the energy had shifted. The polite smiles was still there, but they'd turned sharper around the edges. Denise Welch leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes locked on Judi Dench. Judi, ever the portrait of composure, folded her hands lightly, ready for the next round. Kay Adams opened with a question meant to bridge their views. So, Dame Judi, you're saying investment in space exploration isn't at odds with caring for people here on Earth? Exactly, Judi replied. It's not an either-or situation. Humanity has always moved forward by doing both, looking after our own while reaching for what's beyond. Denise jumped in before Kay could finish her follow-up. But that's the problem, Judi. Governments and corporations keep saying they can do both, yet every year we see cuts to healthcare and pensions while rockets keep launching. How can we justify that to the people struggling to survive? The audience murmured in agreement. Judi didn't flinch. Denise, I understand the frustration, but scientific discovery isn't just about rockets. It leads to medical advances, climate research, even technology that helps the elderly live better lives. We can't freeze curiosity because our systems are broken. We fix the systems. Denise shook her head. That sounds idealistic, Judi. But idealism doesn't pay for an elderly person's prescriptions. I've seen too many families choosing between food and care for their parents. It's not romantic. It's real life. A hush fell. The tone wasn't hostile. It was raw. Judi's voice softened. And I've seen the same, Denise. My own mother struggled in her later years. But if we stop dreaming, stop inventing, stop pushing forward, then the world that hurt them never changes. We just keep patching the same cracks. Colleen spoke up, trying to balance it. But Judi, don't you think sometimes dreaming can be a privilege? When people can't afford to dream because they're just trying to get through the week? Judi turned toward her, thoughtful. It can be, yes, but that's why it matters who controls the dream. Space exploration doesn't have to be a billionaire's toy. It can be a human mission. It should be. Denise leaned closer. But it isn't, Judi. That's the point. The people funding these projects aren't thinking about the average pensioner. They're thinking about glory, profit, and ego. Judi's eyes held hers. Then maybe we need to take the dream back, not destroy it. That landed. The crowd reacted, some clapping, others murmuring disagreement. The tension was electric, the kind that makes for unforgettable television. Kay, sensing the temperature rising, tried to keep things civil. So, if you were Prime Minister, Denise, where would you cut funding? Space or care? Without hesitation, Denise replied, space, every time. Until every elderly person has dignity in their later years, we have no right to be sending millionaires on joyrides. The applause this time was loud and long. Denise sat back, confident. Judi waited, letting the noise fade. Then, in that calm, firm voice of hers, she said, and yet, Denise, the same spirit that sends us into space is what builds the technologies that give that dignity. The devices that help someone walk again. The medicine that came from studying life beyond our planet. All that is connected. We can't act as if one doesn't feed the other." For the first time, Denise paused. Her expression softened just slightly, maybe recognizing Judi's sincerity. "But where do you draw the line, Judi? How much dreaming is too much when people are suffering?" Judi gave a small smile, one that carried both warmth and weariness. "You don't stop dreaming because the world hurts. You dream because it does." The audience erupted. Some stood. Even Kay looked caught off guard by the emotional gravity of it all. Denise didn't reply right away. She glanced down, took a sip of water, then said quietly, "I wish more people in power believed that, Judi, but they don't. And the people paying the price aren't astronauts. There are parents and grandparents." The music cue whirled softly for another break. The tension lingered in the air like static. Judi's grace and Denise's fire had created something rare, a debate that felt less like politics and more like a reckoning. The clash wasn't over, it was only deepening, and both women knew the next segment would decide whether this stayed respectful or turned into something unforgettable.
The studio returned from its second break with an uneasy quiet, the kind that fills the room after words start cutting deeper than planned. Both women sat straighter now, Denise's fiery conviction blazing from her expression, Judi's calm stillness radiating strength. Kay Adams, sensing the tension, tried to set a gentle tone. "We're talking about compassion, whether it's for the next generation or the last. Maybe this isn't about space or money, but about how we define care." Judi nodded. "That's exactly it. Care isn't just physical, it's legacy. We have a duty to ensure that the world our elders worked for continues to evolve. Every generation builds for the next, or everything they sacrificed was for nothing." Denise exhaled sharply. "But Judi, how can you talk about legacy when pensioners can't afford heating? When hospitals are short-staffed and care homes are underfunded? Legacy doesn't mean anything when people are choosing between medicine and food." The words hit hard. You could almost hear the audience hold its breath. Judi's eyes softened. "Denise, my father was a doctor, my mother a code breaker during the war. They gave everything for the future, for us. I can't bear to think that the world they left is one where we stop reaching for the stars. They'd want us to heal the earth and keep dreaming. One doesn't diminish the other." Denise leaned forward, her voice lowering, less attack now, more plea. "And I love that, Judi. I really do. But dreaming doesn't pay for a nurse's wage. You can't fix underfunded care homes with hope." Judi's expression didn't waver. "But you can't fix a broken world by giving up on vision. Hope is the first thing you need to repair anything." A pause. Then, unexpectedly, Judi reached for her glass of water and continued, her tone trembling slightly, not from nerves, but from sincerity. "I visit care centers, Denise. I see the loneliness, the exhaustion, and I think, what kind of world have we built if growing old feels like being forgotten? That's not just about budgets, that's about heart. We've become too focused on what's immediately visible and lost faith in what's possible." The audience erupted in applause. Some clapped standing, others just nodded, eyes misty. Denise didn't interrupt. She waited, letting Judi's words hang. Then she said quietly, "That's powerful, Judi. I really do. But dreaming doesn't pay for a nurse's wage. You can't fix underfunded care homes with hope." Judi's expression didn't waver. "But you can't fix a broken world by giving up on vision. Hope is the first thing you need to repair anything." A pause. Then, unexpectedly, Judi reached for her glass of water and continued, her tone trembling slightly, not from nerves but from sincerity. "I visit care centers, Denise. I see the loneliness, the exhaustion, And I think, what kind of world have we built if growing old feels like being forgotten? That's not just about budgets, that's about heart. We've become too focused on what's immediately visible and lost faith in what's possible. The audience erupted in applause. Some clapped standing, others just nodded, eyes misty. Denise didn't interrupt. She waited, letting Judi's words hang. Then she said quietly, "That's powerful, Judi, but I used her repair to make trembling more solid, with slightly covering the nerves. In this manner, I am talking about faith in humanity. I can't bear to think that the world they left is one where we stop reaching for the stars. They'd want us to heal the earth and keep dreaming. One doesn't diminish the other. I duty to ensure that the world our elders worked for continues to evolve. Every generation builds for the next, or everything they sacrificed was for nothing." "But Judi, how can you talk about legacy when pensioners can't afford heating, when hospitals are short-staffed and care homes are underfunded? Legacy doesn't mean anything when people are choosing between medicine and food." "Agreed," said Judi, leaning forward. "But compassion without ambition keeps us stuck. Compassion without progress leaves the next generation cleaning up our mistakes. Don't you think the two can coexist?" Denise hesitated, caught between admiration and resistance. "I'd like to think so," she admitted. "But in my experience, ambition often forgets compassion once the cameras stop rolling." The studio went quiet again. Judi looked at her, this time not as a debate opponent, but as someone she understood deeply. "Then maybe we need to redefine ambition, Denise. Make compassion the measure of success." It was a turning point. Both women fell silent, not out of defeat, but reflection. Kay, visibly moved, broke the silence. "That's quite something, ladies. You've both made us think. Maybe this isn't about choosing one side, but about demanding better from both, from our leaders and from ourselves." The audience applauded again, longer this time. Even Denise managed a small smile. "I'll drink to that," she said, raising her cup with a half laugh. "Though I still say I'd rather fund a nurse than a spaceship." Judi chuckled softly. "And I'll keep arguing that maybe we can do both if we actually start caring as much as we do about headlines." That earned her another round of applause. As the camera panned across the hosts, you could feel the emotional weight of what had just happened. It wasn't a celebrity argument anymore. It was a conversation about values, humanity, and the gap between what we dream and what we do. Even Denise Welch, known for her tough stance, seemed moved. She reached out, touching Judi's arm lightly. "You know, Judi, I didn't expect to agree with you on much today." Judi smiled, that timeless, gentle smile. "The best conversations aren't about agreement, Denise. They're about understanding." And for a brief moment, the show that thrived on debates found itself wrapped in silence. Not tension this time, but respect. The emotional flashpoint had passed, leaving something softer behind. A shared truth that both women had spoken from the same place. Love for the people they feared were being left behind.
The air in the Loose Women's studio had thickened. By this point, every viewer could feel that the debate had gone somewhere deeper than anyone expected. Judi Dench and Denise Welch weren't just trading opinions. They were clashing over what kind of world they believed in. Denise leaned in, her voice firm but tired. "You keep saying we can fix the system, Judi, but the truth is, people have been saying that for decades, and nothing changes. We're still watching pensioners ration their meals while billionaires talk about colonizing Mars. You call that progress?" Judi sat still for a beat. Then, With the quiet gravity that only she could pull off, she said, "Yes, because progress takes time, and cynicism takes nothing but away. You can either stand still and curse the darkness, or you can light a candle and walk forward." The audience gasped lightly, half in admiration, half in shock at the poetic sting of it. Denise didn't smile. "That's a beautiful line, Judi, but tell that to someone who spent their life paying taxes and now can't afford care. Tell them to light a candle when they can't even afford to keep the lights on." The applause that followed was split, some for Denise's honesty, some for Judi's calm resilience. The tension snapped tighter. Kay tried to cut in, but Judi spoke over her, her tone rising now, passion breaking through her usual restraint. "Denise, you talk as if believing in something better is naive. But what's truly naive is assuming the only way to help people is to stop dreaming. If we give up vision, we give up evolution, and that's the surest way to let suffering win." Denise's hand hit the table, not in anger, but emphasis. "And if we keep only dreaming, people die waiting for real change. You've lived in privilege, Judi. You don't see the waiting lists, the empty cupboards, the loneliness that never gets a headline." The room erupted. Gasps, scattered applause, even a few awkward laughs from the audience who weren't sure how to react. Judi took a slow breath. For a second, she looked wounded, then her expression hardened into resolve. "Don't mistake empathy for ignorance, Denise. I've seen suffering. I've lived through wars, losses, and years when the world felt just as bleak as you're talking about. I've seen the same pain you're talking about, but despair never built anything. Compassion did, and we cannot build without hope." That landed like a bell. Even Denise blinked, momentarily disarmed, but she recovered fast. "Hope doesn't buy medicine, Judi. Policy does. That's the difference between theater and reality." It was the first line that made Judi's brow furrow. She leaned forward, her voice trembling slightly, but not from fear, from frustration. "Then maybe we need more theater in reality, Denise. Maybe people need to remember that empathy isn't weakness. Maybe it takes storytelling and heart to remind people why we fight for each other in the first place." The studio clapped again, louder this time. Kay Adams raised her voice gently, trying to mediate. "Ladies, I think you both want the same thing, a society that doesn't abandon its people." But neither woman looked at her. Judi's eyes stayed locked on Denise's, and Denise's chin lifted slightly in return. Then Judi said, quietly, "I just don't believe we save anyone by shrinking our vision of what's possible." And Denise fired back, "And I don't believe we save anyone by pretending possibility is enough." Silence, the kind that fills a studio when even the audience forgets to breathe. Whoopi Goldberg, who had been watching from the wings during the segment's special taping, murmured something off camera. "That's real talk." Finally, Kay stepped in, her voice the only calm one left. "All right, we need to pause there for a moment." But Judi turned slightly to the crowd before she could finish. "We've become a world that mistakes exhaustion for realism. I just want us to remember that it's all right to still look up once in a while." And Denise, still sitting upright but visibly emotional, whispered, "Not if people can't lift their heads, Judi." That ended the round, the perfect storm of conviction and compassion. Kay called for a break, her voice slightly shaky. "We'll be right back." The lights dimmed, the applause came in uncertain waves, and the camera cut to black. Behind the scenes, both women sat in silence, Judi looking thoughtful, Denise wiping her eyes, before she laughed softly. It wasn't animosity anymore. It was the emotional cost of caring too much. No one in that studio quite realized they'd just witnessed one of the most unforgettable moments in Loose Women history. When the cameras came back from commercial, the mood in the Loose Women studio had completely shifted. The earlier sparks had cooled into something heavier. Not anger, but reflection. You could sense that both Judi Dench and Denise Welch had said more than they intended, peeling back layers that daytime television rarely sees. Kay Adams smiled cautiously as she reintroduced them. Before the break, we had a passionate exchange about priorities, space or care, dreams or duty. But I think we all felt the heart of it. People are hurting, and we all want better for them. Denise nodded, still looking a bit shaken. I may sound harsh sometimes, but it's because I see too much suffering. I get messages from people every day, carers who are exhausted, families drowning in bills. It's not theory, it's their lives. Judi looked at her, softening. And I understand that, Denise. I truly do. But I also believe that the spirit of progress, of looking forward, is what gives those same people something to hold on to. If we lose that, we lose ourselves. The audience applauded, not thunderously, but warmly, as if recognizing the vulnerability behind both women's words. Denise smiled faintly. You know what, Judi? Maybe we're saying the same thing differently. You're talking about hope. I'm talking about help. Maybe the truth is, we need both. Judy's face brightened with that unmistakable grace. I couldn't agree more, she said quietly. Hope gives meaning to help, and help gives hope its shape. Kay leaned in, visibly moved. That's beautifully said. I think that's something we can all take home today. As the conversation wound down, the audience rose to its feet, giving both women a standing ovation. It wasn't for who won. It was for the rare sight of two strong voices finding common ground after a storm. Backstage footage later captured them sharing a quiet moment. Denise laughed through tears. You really are impossible to argue with, Judi. Judi chuckled. I'm impossible to agree with sometimes, too, I'm afraid. The clip went viral before the day was out. Hashtags like Loose Women Legendary, hashtag Judi versus Denise, and hashtag Hope and Help trended across social media. Viewers called it one of the most powerful discussions daytime TV had ever aired, a reminder that disagreement doesn't have to mean division. One viral comment summed it up best. 2 women, 2 worlds, 1 truth. We can dream of the stars and still take care of the people who built the world beneath them. If you enjoyed this emotional face-off, make sure to subscribe for more unforgettable celebrity showdowns, heart-stirring debates, and moments that remind us what really matters.